Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will resume in 15 minutes. The show will resume in 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will resume in 10 minutes. The show will resume in 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will resume in 5 minutes. The show will resume in 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will resume in 2 minutes. The show will resume in 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will resume in 1 minute. The show will resume in 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
We the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure the domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self thy country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, and all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh,
Sioux Falls, our community, our home, a place unlike any other, from quiet residential streets to our bustling downtown, from growing industrial parks to cutting-edge research labs, from our thriving startup ecosystem to the largest established institutions. Sioux Falls offers something for everyone: artists, scientists, teachers, electricians, entrepreneurs, all find in Sioux Falls a place where they can grow and thrive. Tonight, we celebrate the strength, the resilience, and the vibrant energy that sets our community apart.
for patriotry and ever blizzard years, whose alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. Oh, America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea, shining sea.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's pride in every American heart. It's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the USA.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jay Rasmussen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 114th annual meeting of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're here in person at the Convention Center or watching via live stream, I'm so glad that you chose to join tonight's celebration of our extraordinary community and our Chamber of Commerce. My name is Jay Rasmussen with Journey Group Companies, and I'm honored to serve as chair for tonight's event. This annual meeting is unlike any other, and it would have not been possible without the support of our sponsors. Will you please help me show your appreciation to our two champion sponsors, Avera Health and Sanford Health. Also, we have 11 advocate sponsors. Their names are in the program and on the screen. Will you please help me thank our advocate sponsors? Finally, a special thanks goes to the creative minds behind the scenes, making sure the entire production runs smoothly. Thanks to our creative partners, Henkin Schultz. Next, I'd like to recognize some of the distinguished guests we have with us this evening. These leaders contribute their time and their talents to building our community at the local, state, and national levels. As I identify you, please stand and remain standing. And please, everyone, hold your applause. Sioux Falls Mayor Paul Tenhaken, members of the Sioux Falls City Council, members of the school boards of our local school districts, members of the Minnehaha and Lincoln County Commissions, and any other elected county officials, members of the South Dakota State Legislature, past chairs of the board of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, and any current or former members of the United States Armed Forces. Thanks to all of you for your service to our chamber, to our community, to our state, and our country. As a Chamber of Commerce, we are a member-driven organization. Our work depends on the engagement and commitment of volunteers. Ticket sales for this annual meeting was handled by a group of volunteers. These individuals' names are listed in your programs. In addition, the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce has a board of directors, 14 formal committees, and several other volunteer roles. To everyone who gives their time and talent to the Chamber, we thank you. Now, I'm pleased to introduce the President and CEO of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. Please welcome to the stage, Jeff Griffin.
Thank you, Jay. You may have heard the most useless purchase of 2019 was a 2020 planner. Or you've seen the countdown clocks to January 1st, 2021. There are endless jokes and memes about how bad 2020 has been. For me, 2020 has brought my family to this extraordinary place where it's my privilege to serve as President and CEO of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. 10 months ago to the day, I started my job, but I only had 2 months to make a favorable impression upon the board prior to having to cancel the St. Patrick's Day parade. Given Dan Doyle's Irish heritage, I feel fortunate to still have a job. A pandemic combined with the most significant and troubling civil unrest we've seen in a generation has advanced my relationships with the Chamber board, staff, and volunteers at lightning speed. And these 10 months have confirmed for me and Rosie that we made the right decision moving our family to Sioux Falls. This city has something extraordinary that I haven't seen elsewhere. It starts with people who are willing to go above and beyond. Each year, we select one individual who goes above and beyond for our chamber and our community, and we recognize them with the Spirit of DeWald Award. Good morning, Bernie.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, listen, I remember my first week on the job, Dr. Kapaska had lunch on my schedule for Evan and Bernie. And I knew who Evan was, but I didn't know who Bernie was. Now, I learned there's an award named after you. How did we come to have a Bernie DeWald Award?
I honestly don't know. It's been about 10 or 12 years ago that this award was presented to me, which, people have tried to explain to me that because I've been involved in the chamber for, 50-some years, that it should be named after me. So,
well, that probably has something to do with it. I'm picking up on, I think your humility has something to do with it as well.
Well, no, not really.
So 2020's been a challenging year for all of us. So what's important about giving this award out as we celebrate October 20th?
Well, I think a person that we are honoring with this award is well known in Sioux Falls. I've known him for probably 30 years or so, and he's kind of a behind-the-scene person all the time. He never wants to take credit for what's going on within his company, which is really, helping building our city.
Yep.
He's just an incredible individual.
Well, don't you think, with 2,000 members and 80,000 employees within those members, don't you think that's what the spirit of the chamber is all about? That's what keeps people engaged. I think you've been doing this over 50 years.
Well, you get people enthused about, what's going on in Sioux Falls. How can we make it better? And I think that's what the Chamber's goal is.
You know, I challenge people to think, when was life easy? You know, this is what we're called to do, to be leaders and to serve one another. And that's what the Spirit of DeWalt Award is all about. And thanks for taking the time to come out with me today to present it. Yeah. All right, let's go give him the award.
This year, we have selected you as a recipient of the Spirit of DeWalt Award.
Thanks again for everything you do for Sioux Falls.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Want to do this? Let's do it this way. We can wash.
This is a huge, huge honor. I mean, can't believe it.
Gentlemen, please help me congratulate our 2020 Spirit of DeWalt Award winner, Mr. Craig Lloyd. We already said tonight is the Chamber's 114th annual meeting. It is actually our 114th consecutive annual meeting. As our team planned for the event during a pandemic, we took a look back into history to see if we could find any guidance or precedent for planning an event under such circumstances. What we found was that even during the 1918 Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and World War II, Chamber members gathered for their annual meeting. And a century ago, they were recognizing some of the same core features of Sioux Falls that we know make it extraordinary. Our growth, infrastructure, public utilities, schools and higher education, our churches and our nonprofits, and our strong industries of production, agriculture, finance, and healthcare. Your commitment to the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce is a commitment to be part of something bigger than yourself. Part of something bigger than your single business. It is the same commitment that has been in our fabric for 114 years. Absorb that tradition for a moment. Quiet your mind and feel the responsibility we all have for our community. Feel it deep inside your soul and know that we are blessed by the work of past generations. Now also know that our work and actions of today write our history for future generations. Our Chamber of Commerce is a convener and a catalyst. Alone, we don't make the community extraordinary, but we do create the environment to make that happen. The Chamber offers so much value in the form of education and networking, leadership development, professional training, community engagement, access to elected officials, agricultural programs, visitors industry, entrepreneurship, and I could keep going. Each of you likely has a piece of that is most special to your chamber membership, but it is the entire package, the various elements supporting the diverse needs of our business community that have extraordinary impact. I already said I'm confident we made the right decision moving to Sioux Falls because besides the strong business environment and high quality of life, you have all extended such a warm welcome to my family. You have asked with sincerity how we are adjusting, and you have facilitated connections that have helped smooth our transition. Rosie and I are very grateful. As we look at the year ahead, I challenge you to ask yourself, what can you be doing? And what can your business be doing? And what can the Chamber of Commerce be doing to ensure that every resident and new resident to Sioux Falls feels the same welcome and support that my family experienced? How can we make Sioux Falls a community that embraces all people? Because be clear, our future success depends on our embrace of all people. I am excited by the opportunities that lie before us. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you for being here tonight, and God bless you.
Shortly after I got into office, we started using this mantra of One Sioux Falls. And the point of that was really to emphasize the fact that when we work together, whether that's school districts, whether that's city, county, whether that's business community. When we work together, we can accomplish so much more than when we operate in kind of individual silos. Well, building that kind of cornerstone and that foundation of One Sioux Falls really has helped us during the pandemic, because that brand of being one community was built up, and now we had to tap into it. Are we really One Sioux Falls? Are we really one community? Do we really work together like we say we do? And we've seen that resiliency, and it's been incredible to see. We live in my opinion, one of the most philanthropic and supportive cities in the country, and the city always rises up.
You know, I think you saw the business community in Sioux Falls come together like never before. We've always been very supportive of one another, encouraging, and, you know, really trying to build one another up. But you saw that just exponentially during the beginning of the pandemic. People were reaching out to one another, checking in. Are you guys doing okay? How's business going for you? And not only did it help serve to encourage one another, but it really helped us share ideas as well.
Owners and managers of businesses all around our community were facing challenges that they've never anticipated or seen before. Congress passed and the President signed into law the CARES Act, which included the PPP program. And that was done on March 27. So that gave lenders all around the state only a week's notice to stand up a $1 billion loan program. All total, over 350 lenders provided over 23,000 PPP loans totaling $1.7 billion for small businesses and organizations all across the state of South Dakota. It involved bankers all across the state and so many of our support staff to meet this challenge. But I don't believe I've ever experienced a time in my career where we had a bigger impact on our customers. And more important than just our customers, it was their employees. And beyond their employees, it was the lives of people all throughout our community. Friends and neighbors that we all work with and interact with.
One of the things that has been really unique to see is Sanford Health, Avera Health, our VA, City of Sioux Falls, have all come together for the common good of the community, which is battling the coronavirus.
We recognize the need for consistent communication and coordination with the City of Sioux Falls and Avera almost immediately. We established a command center with city leaders, public health experts, and leaders from both health systems to find solutions to the new challenges facing the city as we navigate the early days of this pandemic. Together, we very quickly set up childcare for healthcare workers and first responders through a collaborative effort among the school districts, hospital systems, and nonprofit providers.
It's been amazing working together with all the local leaders. The link, as an example, we were able to put that together with Minnehaha County, City of Sioux Falls, Sanford Health, and Avera. It was originally called the Triage Center, renamed it and branded it the Link so that it is a bridge for individuals who might have an addiction behavior. And where can they go? Well, now they actually have a place where they can go and then get resources and maybe bridge to a longer therapy plan. So we really think it'll serve the community well, and it's right downtown Sioux Falls. Even during a pandemic, we can come together and work for the greater Sioux Falls.
The last 6 months have highlighted how well our community gels together when we have to, and how well we come together. One of the things that stood out for me early on was the One Sioux Falls Fund that we set up to help people who are facing housing challenges stay in their homes and not face eviction. And we set that up right away, probably within the first week of COVID. And within about 2 weeks, we had over $3.5 million that had been contributed to that fund, which literally kept thousands of people in their homes. So that's just one example of many. What we've seen on the individual level with some of our nonprofits and how people have risen up to help Feeding South Dakota and the food bank and things like that. There's been different organizations that have recognized that need, that not only housing is a need, but food security has also been a big need, and organizations have recognized that and helped with that.
When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's a lot of work being done, a lot of things happening in the nation and specifically here in Sioux Falls, and I think now is that time to kind of get over that next layer, that next hump. We have the right people in the right places to say, how do we make this beyond just a check the box and really build it into the fabric of our community, build it into the fabric of our businesses to say, how do we make it fair for all? How do we make sure that we're including all folks from all walks of life to say this is a city and a community that is behind them, and we're building that new normal of what our community can be as we step into our fullest potential.
One thing that I've learned through the past 6 months is when you're in a situation like we're now, there are two approaches you can take. You can lament on the situation you're in and take a woe is me approach and look at the negative, or you can say this is an opportunity to lead through it. And I've seen it in businesses and I've seen it in elected officials to say, we're going to embrace this challenge and come out better.
You know, we really did the best we could do to remain nimble. We didn't know if we were selling cupcakes from one day to the next, but we saw that grocery stores were having supply chain issues and people were having a hard time getting the things that we all needed, those necessities. And so I thought, well, we use butter and flour and sugar and milk and a lot of those things that people need as necessities. So we put them out actually for sale, started selling a few groceries. It evolved into selling produce by a delivery service, which seems a little out of the box for a cupcake shop, but people loved it.
Mother of invention is necessity. And I think over this pandemic, we've learned how to use telemedicine. We've learned how to take care of patients at home through virtual care. And so I do think there's been some inventions that have come out of this. So there is some grace, maybe in a dark lining, that we can utilize now. So as we've moved forward, we've been looking at what is the new normal and how can we operate differently, how can we give more technology to our patients to be treated at home as opposed to having to come into the facility. And so I think it's one of those opportunities for us that even though it's a pandemic, how can we make a silver lining out of it?
The support from the people of Sioux Falls has been incredible. In the first few months of the pandemic in our footprint, we were overwhelmed with donations from the community looking to support our healthcare workers. Events like Light Up Sioux Falls brought together thousands to light up our skies in support of our frontline workers. These acts of caring for our caregivers humbled all of us.
Whether you're in healthcare or whether you're in food production or whether you're in public service or whether you're a first responder, those folks have had it rougher than some others. And we have to accept that, acknowledge that, but thank them. Because it has been a challenging time for a lot of people, but especially our frontline essential workers. And the city's very grateful for the work that they've put in the last 6 months.
The greatest opportunity we have right now is to start with commonality. The commonality all of us want. We want safe community for our children. We want a prosperous and thriving community in business community, and just opportunity to live a great life. And we have those components here, and it's going to take us working together to make those things come to fruition.
Sioux Falls came into the pandemic in a strong fiscal position, low unemployment, and I think the way that we've managed ourselves through this pandemic, not only from a government side but also from a business side, we're going to pop out of this thing, and we already are popping out of this thing in a stronger position than some of our peer cities and states. And so that speaks to the resiliency of the city, and I use that term a lot, but I mean it. We are a very resilient community, and that resiliency has really shown in the last 6 months, and because of that, we're going to be in a good position coming out of that. I'm very confident of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your 2020-2021 Chair of the Board for the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, Dan Doyle.
Whew! We made it. What a year. What a process of preparing for this event. Given all the uncertainties of 2020, there was a time when I thought, maybe hoped, I might be the first chair of the Chamber Board in 114 years who did not have to stand on this stage and give a speech to an enormous audience. In all seriousness, I'm very proud to be here, and on behalf of the Chamber's Board of Directors, its nearly 2,000 member businesses, and their approximately 80,000 employees, thank you for joining us for the 114th annual meeting. The stories we just saw in this video were extraordinary, but they're only a sampling of our community. I can't even begin to list all the times I've been encouraged and inspired in the past year by the stories of people and businesses demonstrating innovation, resilience, vision, collaboration, and success. Sioux Falls, you are extraordinary. We all know this year has been challenging. When we gathered for the Chamber's annual meeting, 1 year ago, Sioux Falls was recovering from devastating tornadoes and flooding in our city. Then November rolled around, and the state was making national headlines because we were on meth. We made it through another South Dakota winter, though, and just as we were enjoying a USD Women's Summit League championship, go Yotes, a pandemic hit, and Jeff Griffin canceled the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And we were all stuck at home with our children, whom we love, of course. All joking aside, we've had some hard conversations and have had to make some tough decisions this year. Some industries have been hit much harder than others, but I think it's safe to say that nobody has been unaffected. In no way do I intend to make light of the very real hardships some have faced this year. But for tonight, I'm choosing to focus on the positives. In the past year, I have seen the core of Sioux Falls' character. We grow and evolve. What makes us extraordinary is that we remain a community, in the truest sense of that word. We support each other. We work together to find solutions, and we set a vision for the future as a community. So, despite the adversity, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on some of the wins we've achieved here in the Chamber over the past year. First, we began the Chamber year under interim leadership. I'm proud that in a time of transition, our members, volunteers, and staff did not miss a beat in keeping up Chamber programming, advocacy, and community leadership. We now have a great new leader in Jeff Griffin. This year we unveiled a new visual identity for the community, one that is shared by the Chamber, the Development Foundation, Experience Sioux Falls, Forward Sioux Falls, and the City of Sioux Falls. Our new logo family is a public representation of one of our defining traits as a community, collaboration. During the 2020 legislative session, the Chamber successfully led a coalition in support of a bill that authorized the written portion of the driver's examination to be offered in Spanish. The effort began in 2018, but this year, with the governor's signature on the bill, we've taken another important step toward removing barriers that prevent some of our legal residents from participating in the workforce. We need everyone. Within the first 2 weeks of the pandemic hitting, the Chamber acted quickly to launch a COVID resource website. We shared information and best practices for all businesses, regardless of whether they are Chamber members. We pivoted to help businesses persevere through challenges of the pandemic. Spark Sioux Falls was initiated by the Chamber and 4 other partners in an effort to rekindle the economic engine of the region. Spark engaged the community to discover challenges people and businesses were facing as they navigated a new environment. It developed recommendations for businesses to refocus, rebuild, and energize our economy. More recently, Jeff Griffin introduced to the Sioux Falls Leadership Council the initial topic of, Sioux Falls Leadership Council, the idea of a community table event. The initial topic of discussion, which was adopted well before the events in Minneapolis led to widespread protests across the country, was the topic of diversity in our community. In spite of challenges due to the pandemic, folks met in person and virtually to share stories and strategies to ensure Sioux Falls evolves to reflect our increased diversity. Leadership Sioux Falls, the Chamber's signature leadership program, graduated its 34th class this year. With those new graduates, we have now surpassed 1,000 individuals who have completed the program. We can all take pride in the significant investment made in the future leadership of our community. These successes and more illustrate the character of our Chamber and our community. Going further, doing more than required, putting in a little extra effort. It's just part of how we operate here. In Sioux Falls, extra is ordinary. Extra is weaved into the fabric of our community. It's who we are. We are extraordinary. Now it's a new year. What opportunities and challenges may be in store for us over the coming 12 months? We don't become an extraordinary community by resting on our laurels. There's work ahead of us to continue to remain strong and to improve. In the coming months, we will launch our Next Forward Sioux Falls campaign. Since its inception in 1987, this program has raised more than $52 million for economic development, supporting initiatives in the areas of research, entrepreneurship, workforce development, business advocacy, quality of life, and more. Look around our community. You can't miss the impact of this visionary program. In fact, communities around the country look to Sioux Falls as the standard bearer for how to do this type of program. We recently documented the story of Forward Sioux Falls in a new book. It's our hope that this history will be shared with others and inspire the next generation of leaders. Across the nation, diversity, equity, and inclusion has been an especially hot topic. I'm proud that our chamber has been engaged on these issues for several years, but there is undoubtedly more work ahead. Soon, the chamber will share details of an exciting new partnership that will help us provide businesses with the tools they need to create an open and welcoming environment in their workplaces. The chamber does not have all the answers, but what we can offer is what we do best: build a coalition of knowledgeable people who will work together to tackle important issues. You may have heard that we have an election coming up soon. With that in mind, tonight I have two asks of you. The first is easy: vote. If you have already, thank you. If you haven't yet, please do so on November 3rd. As we are reminded more and more, every vote, no matter where you live, does count. And this election isn't just about what happens in Washington. It includes the South Dakota legislature, the state Supreme Court, changes to the state constitution, an initiated measure, county officials, and other important matters. My second ask of you is, when you vote, please vote your conscience. Put political parties and ideologies aside. Vote in the way that you believe will be best for your family, your friends, your city, and your state. If you are unsure of a candidate or issue, the Chamber's public policy team offers numerous resources to help educate you. From detailed briefs on ballot questions to our legislative scorecard tracking which state legislators voted in line with business-friendly policies monitored and advocated upon by the Chamber. If you are deliberate and purposeful with your vote, that is what is important. One vote can cause change. Talk about extraordinary. I am honored to be your chair of the board of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. When I walk down the hallway of the chamber office and look at the composites of past chairs, I feel as if I'm standing in the shadows of giants. They are folks that I have looked up to and admired since my youth growing up here in Sioux Falls. I would like to thank all of them for their care and guidance of the chamber over these last 114 years. Because of these past leaders, your chamber is strong, stable, influential, and dare I say, extraordinary. This year, there were 5 folks that completed their term of service on the Chamber's Board of Directors. Their leadership and willingness to sacrifice of their time has been incredible. We are truly blessed to have had them helping to lead the Chamber forward. Thank you to Tom Beegler, CEO of Regency Hotel Management, Randy Connect, CEO of Journey Group, Carla Santi, CEO of Blend Interactive, Claire Santos, owner of Zoop and Wingstop, and last, but certainly not least, immediate past chairman of the board, Tim Sturnevant, CEO of Sturnevant Auto Parts. Please give them a round of applause. For the past year, Bobby Turi has led our chamber as chair, and what a year it's been. Thank you, Bobby, for your tireless efforts during this wild and crazy year of change and challenges. Next, I want to extend my appreciation to my partners, associates, and staff at the Cutler Law Firm for affording me the flexibility and support to take on the responsibilities of board chair. Thank you for being my home away from home since the very beginning of my career. I would also like to thank my family in attendance and watching from home for their guidance and support, providing me the opportunities I have had throughout my life. A special thank you to my father, who set me on the path of chamber involvement when he encouraged me to join the Young Professionals Network when it launched back in 2009. Finally, I would like to thank my wife, Jessica, and our two children, Luella and Colette, for their love, patience, and support. Thank you. I love you dearly. Like most of you, the work we put forward in our lives is not for ourselves. It's for others, our fellow citizens, our friends, and certainly our families. In my humble opinion, part of what makes Sioux Falls extraordinary is that our people do their work tirelessly. We go beyond, and we do it all the time. Extra is, quite simply, an ordinary part of who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the chamber, and you are extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We certainly have a lot to look forward to this coming year. Now, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker. Larry Young knows what it takes to turn an average business into the most profitable within its industry. He gained a reputation in the corporate world as the market share resuscitator by starting $400 million businesses lines from scratch and turning dying markets into dominant players in their industry. Larry is the author of Walk the Sales Plank, a serial entrepreneurial and a venture capitalist. His company, Boiling Frog Development, recently relocated from the Southwest to Sioux Falls due to the great business climate we have here. Larry helps companies understand how their dream clients are making buying decisions today and positions their business development activities in the center of that target market. Larry is a regular requested guest for national podcasts, executive mastermind groups, business conferences, and has appeared on numerous newspaper, TV, and media outlets. Tonight, he will talk with us about organizations thriving versus just surviving in both good times and in bad. Please help me welcome Larry Young.
Thank you, Jay. Vacation's all I ever wanted. Vacation, gotta get away. Vacation meant to be spent alone. Wait a minute. That's not what you expected, Sioux Falls, I'm guessing, right? Jeff, I can tell by the look on your face that clearly that sounds better in my head than when I sing it, right? Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. My singing career would be more short-lived than a corn stalk on 57th in Minnesota, true? Right? Outdone by Cornelius. Why would I do that? Why would I put you through that torture? Or better yet, why would I put myself through that torture and slightly embarrass myself. I've got friends here I can see with their heads still in their hands. Why would I do that? The song Vacation by the Go-Go's, it's a 40-year-old song, really doesn't have anything to do with leadership, does it? I guess unless you need a vacation. But singing that song in front of a group of strangers when you clearly can't sing just may have everything to do with it. Tonight, I'm going to share with you 3 powerful observations of businesses that thrive versus those that survive, the leaders that rise versus those that stay stagnant. This is how I see it playing out tomorrow morning. You'll go one of 3 ways, those of you that are here and that are online. Either you're a leader that maybe wants to run your own department, maybe your own division, maybe you want to run your own company. The observations that I'm going to share with you tonight are going to allow you to be able to grow, to rapidly grow your leadership so that you can have the skills to lead. For some of you in this room, you represent some of the business owners or maybe the executive leadership team. These observations I'm going to give you tonight will allow your business to thrive because you'll be able to develop bench strength, strong people that will help thrust you and thrive in good times and in bad. And I know tonight there are individuals here that are in the development organizations. I know we talked about Forward Sioux Falls, Experience Sioux Falls, the Chamber, of course. We've got the city is represented here, as well as the Sioux Falls Development Foundation and many others. And these tools will allow you to be able to drive value for not only your members, but the new businesses we want to attract to Sioux Falls. Here's what I'll tell you. We can end up being extraordinary. Let's get to work. Businesses that thrive and leaders that rise, one of the first observations that I've seen in 20 years of building and seeing businesses is that their organization and their leaders are fearless. But what I'm not talking about tonight is I'm not talking about Superman, right? That you have this insane courage. Or like a Viking, you know the Viking that kind of looks before they leap? You know, like fearless Vikings? You know, like a real Viking? Not like the ones we're seeing on Sundays right now? I got a few Bears fans, and there's always some in every crowd, right? The hallmark of these individuals that are fearless and these businesses that are fearless, here's what it comes down to. They're not afraid of their failures. In fact, what these organizations do so well that thrive is they don't allow themselves to define themselves by their failures. And therefore, they use that as a competitive advantage, as a learning tool to grow and to thrive. You think about it, intuitively, some of our best lessons in life that we have learned has been from our failures, hasn't it? But a lot of times I'll see in business where all of a sudden they'll get to a certain point and they'll want to play it safe. They don't want to make any mistakes. We'll just do it the way we've always done it. Or a leader all of a sudden gets to a certain position and now all of a sudden I don't want to make any mistakes. And so where do you fit on that scale of thriving versus surviving? Folks, one of the questions that I ask leadership quite often at the onset, and it kind of gives you an idea of where you are. In fact, I'll ask you the question tonight. And it's a powerful one to know whether you're thriving and you're moving forward, whether you're really being defined by your failures. And the question is this: when is the last time you did something for the first time? When is the last time you did something for the first time that you weren't guaranteed success? Has it been a while? For me, folks, when I was asked that question a dozen years ago, it was like a punch to the stomach, because what I realized at that time is sometimes the biggest killer of success can be success, can it? But what if it wasn't? What if we really wanted to rise as a leader or thrive as a business? And we were able to jump into our fears and not define ourselves by the chance that we might fail. What could happen? What I've seen in leaders and organizations is it radically changes their life. In fact, it can almost change the trajectory of your life. 25 years ago, folks, I was a senior at Dakota Wesleyan. Yes, the Harvard of the Dakotas. Now, I did coin that term some years ago. I know I did. I'm a senior there, and nobody wants to be the senior class president that year because the senior class president has to give the speech at graduation. So now I'm a kid at that time that visibly gets sick if I'm going to give a class presentation to 2 or 3 people, but I'm also a Northeast Nebraska farm kid, and so I just rolled up my sleeves. Somebody's got to do it. So I said I'd do it. Unbeknownst to the crowd, folks, I showed up at graduation with my speech written on a piece of toilet paper. And I got up to the podium, and I said, I want to thank the family and friends and faculty for being here today, and I wanted to give you a message that I thought you would remember for the rest of your life, something inspiring. So I went to the place on campus over the last 4 years that I did my best thinking. And I reached into my gown and I pulled out that roll of toilet paper and I grabbed the end of it and I dropped it over the podium. It hits the stage, rolls across the stage, down the steps, and 2,000 people burst into laughter. 2,000 people while I'm reading this speech going on and on and on. A kid that was scared of public speaking. I could have never known. I could have never known how that day would change my life. The question is, I see leaders all the time and they're jumping into their fears. What they're doing is they're seeing something that they fear. Maybe it's a skill that they need. Maybe it's something they're trying to develop. And they're looking for that and they jump into that. And what we know is on the other side of that is a better version of ourselves. And leaders that are rising and driving businesses that are thriving are always trying to do new and better things. I don't have any toilet paper tonight, in case you noticed. Maybe a little bad singing. But I could have never known. Forbes did a study one time. They looked at the Fortune 500 CEOs, and what they found, I thought this was amazing. 60% of them had been fired from a job. But yet, they never let the failure define them. And they went on to run our nation's biggest market capitalized companies. But what was interesting is they did a study of 2,500 CEOs that had lost their job, and I thought this was fantastic. 91% of those, after being fired, went on to a position of greater responsibility. Why? Because they never let the failure define them. They were fearless of their failures. That's the mindset that leaders have to continually move forward. And what it does is it starts to change the mindset. When you're driving for goals and you're driving for business, when you're trying to rise in your company and develop your leadership, it's one of the most fantastic things that you can do, because all of a sudden you'll start to see opportunities now that you've never seen before. The Genome Project did a study. I thought this was fascinating for us tonight. They looked at 17,000 CEOs. These are leaders of companies, those of us that want to aspire to the biggest companies. And they looked at all sorts of characteristics, and here's what they found. From the time these individuals got their first job to the time that they ended up becoming CEO was 24 years. And so they started to take a look at the individuals that did this in half the time, maybe a third of the time. You know, those fast-rising leaders you think in your organization, maybe they're your rising stars. Maybe they're your emerging leaders. What is it that those fast-rising leaders did that was so different than everyone else? And what they found is somewhere along the line, they inherited a mess. Or somewhere along the line, they did something that nobody wants to do. I listened to the speeches tonight and what you've accomplished in this extraordinary Sioux Falls, and you have done things that other cities would not do. And you're seeing the dividends. But these individual leaders took over a mess. Now, this is near and dear to my heart. There were times when I used to tell my wife, folks, I'm like, I guarantee I got the job. She's like, why? I said, because nobody else would apply for it, right? You heard my bio, it was my thing. But what you realize is that when those opportunities present you in your workplace, when you're trying to drive for leadership, one of the biggest hallmarks of leaders that rise is that they'll take over something that no one else wants. I kind of have a joke, that Northeast Nebraska farm kid, it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, right? It's your job to make it look better. That's right. For those of us as leaders, those are a couple ways to rise fast, and they're courageous. But I want to talk for a quick second for those of you that represent the business owners or the executive team. One of the hallmarks of leaders that rise in good times and bad, organizations that thrive, is the fact that they make it safe for the people to do this. They make it safe for their people to fail. They give them a white sheet of paper and they say, try and learn, focus fast, fail fast. It's so paramount that we as leaders create this environment in our organizations to make it safe for our people to try. I think this is fitting, but I heard Jeff Bezos say one time that if Amazon is setting up a fulfillment center, they expect it to go off without a hitch because they've done it 40 or 50, 60 times. But if they're doing something for the betterment of their clients, betterment for their customers, better fulfillment, better product, better delivery, they'll do it with 70% of the information and they're not afraid to fail. Because what they believe in is focus fast, fail fast. Fail fast, focus fast. Jeff Bezos went on to say that some of their greatest innovative things that they've done at Amazon were born out of their ability to fail. I'll leave you with this point for leaders and leadership development in terms of fearlessness. What we have to understand is failure is not the opposite of success, folks. Failure is a part of success. And we have to drive into that and not worry about the things that we fail at, and it makes all the difference in companies that rise. True? The second observation that I saw over 20 years was that organizations are learning organizations, and the leaders are learners. And what they do is they acquire powerful business knowledge that allows them to be able to differentiate themselves and have a competitive advantage. Today's CEOs read between 40 and 50 books a year. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, any of those guys, Mark Cuban, all the way to Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, all read insatiably to have an advantage over their rivals. And this is the hallmark, but it's more, folks, than just reading a book. We all realize we can pick up a book and get a tip or learn something. But what these organizations are doing to be able to thrive not only in great times and bad times is that what they're doing is they're starting to see patterns that other people don't see. I love this story. It's a story of Juan Fangio. Juan Fangio was an Italian Grand Prix racer in the 1950s. He was known for his aggressive style, dominant personality. And so he's racing in the 1950 Grand Prix at Monaco. Unbeknownst to him this day, he's coming up on what they call a blind corner. A blind corner is one that you cannot see around. And on the other side of that is 8 or 9 cars that have been piled up. And at the speeds that he's driving, not only is his race probably over, but potentially his life. When all of a sudden, folks, on that day, Fangio does something that nobody expected. He slowed up before that corner, drove around the intersection, weaved through traffic, and on to victory. And they asked him, they said, Fangio, afterwards, how could you have known? You couldn't have seen around that corner. There's no way possible. And what he said that day to the reporters is important for us as leaders that are trying to develop learning organizations. What he said is, I saw a picture of the Grand Prix at Monaco, a photograph that was taken a dozen years prior. And what I noticed is that on the photograph is it was a picture of an accident on that same intersection, cars piled up there. And he said what caught my attention in the picture wasn't the accident. It was the fact that the color of the crowd was black because everybody's head was turned looking at the accident. And so on that day in 1950, folks, he comes around that corner just like that. He sees the pattern. What organizations are doing that are learning organizations is that they're seeing patterns that their competitors do not. They're seeing around corners that their rivals cannot. And they're using this as an advantage. I have a saying that I use a lot of time with leaders. When we're trying to walk farther than we've ever walked, which denotes that we're trying to push ourselves farther than ever before. There's a saying I use, and it's this: you cannot stay stuck in your comfort zone when your mind is moving forward. You cannot stay stuck in your comfort zone when your mind is moving forward. And organizations that get this are always moving forward. They're growing and they're doing things that others do not. We all understand that when we look at organizations, as I said earlier, we can pick up a book. But the reality is what these organizations are doing is, again, they're starting to develop patterns and see things that, again, their competitors do not in good times and in bad. We all know as leaders that I've gone into organizations where we've seen leaders that will actually have books and they'll have book clubs and they'll actually be talking about things and they'll be working through this. They're walking farther than they've ever walked. They're pushing themselves by taking a book or information and they're trying to denote that through their organization. But I've also seen organizations too that now have leadership groups, like your emerging leaders, the people you're trying to develop for bench strength, are doing things like mastermind groups. And they're getting together, and what they're doing is they're taking different departments and they're growing together and they're solving problems together and they're being collaborative with each other. And it makes all the difference. They're solving problems throughout the organization and the results are fantastic. I've had the opportunity to work with companies in the world of sales, where now all of a sudden we're taking one of the sales meetings a month. And what they're doing is they're starting out with a podcast, as an example. Maybe they're listening to an expert on creating value. They're listening to that for 15 minutes and then spending 20 minutes with the sales team talking to them about how do we deliver value to our customers? How do we get this out there with our prospects? And what they're doing is think about how engaged that sales staff is. Think about how engaged they are to be able to go out that week and go and to their clients and prospects and deliver value that their competitors are not. We're seeing some great things with these organizations. Also in Sioux Falls, which are our two title sponsors, you see in the healthcare, you see this as a big advantage. And I'm seeing what's happening on that front line is that they're developing people. They're allowing those frontline leaders to co-create solutions using books and mastermind groups and collaborating. As remember, I talked about Jeff Bezos. What they're focusing on is how do we deliver better healthcare? How do we deliver a better experience for our customers or our patients? And they're seeing outstanding results. Learning organizations are the wave of the future. When I walk into them, they always have a pattern. They always see something that's happening, and they allow it to permeate throughout that. There's a saying that I like, and what it denotes is where you're going to grow to. And the saying is this, that the bigger your future is, the bigger you see your future, folks, the brighter today is. The bigger you see your future 5 years from now, 10 years from now in your business or in your leadership, the bigger that is, the brighter today is. And what those organizations are doing is they're backfilling that information. They're taking that information and they're making that happen. They're going from here to there. And we're seeing some outstanding results of learning. The third observation I'm going to share with you, and I like this one for our leadership development. In fact, what these leaders do that I see throughout, the leaders that are rising and driving companies, is they've developed their own personal board of advisors. They've went out and they've been able to have people around them that are designed to push them. Designed to push them farther. Remember, we're trying to walk farther than we've ever walked. Sometimes it's easy to take a day off, isn't it? Right? But when you think about that big picture goal that you had there for a second, who's in your life that's going to push you? I love the story of Roger Bannister. For those of you that don't know who Roger Bannister is the first human to run the mile in less than 4 minutes. A feat at that time that they thought was absolutely impossible. And then on a day in 1956, Roger Bannister broke that record. Even when at that time all of the coaches, the athletes, and other sports figures thought that it was humanly impossible to do. The story that usually goes with Roger Bannister is the fact that once that record was broken, there wasn't a barrier anymore, was there? All of a sudden, people didn't see a limitation on what they could do. Within 40 days, Roger's record was broken. Within 10 years, high school kids were breaking this record. And now the record, I think, stands at like 347, a feat that was not thought possible. Tonight, we're talking about walking farther than we've ever walked. And that would be a very fitting story for us, wouldn't it? The fact that we're able to walk, in this case, they ran faster or farther than they ever had. And so that barrier wasn't there. And now all of a sudden, everybody continued to move. Everybody continued to break through that. But folks, tonight I wanted to share with you a story, a narrative inside of Roger's story that never gets talked about, that I think is one of the most fascinating leadership talks or leadership development concepts out there. On that day in 1956, what Roger used was a technique that was legal, but at that time was somewhat controversial. Roger used pacers. For those of you that don't know what pacers are individual teammates that will run the race with you. They can run as fast as you, but they just can't run as far. And their job is to make sure they run as long as they can, as fast as they can, so Roger can just keep up with it. So Roger can keep the pace on breaking the record. So on that day in 1956, he used two of those individuals. The first pacer kept the pace for about 2.5 laps, when all of a sudden he fades off. The next pacer steps in and takes him about another lap. So they're about 3.5 laps inside of this 4-lap race when he fades off. And Roger gallops into history. The question I have for you tonight in your leadership development is, who are the pacers in your life? Who are the pacers in your life that are designed to push you farther than you've ever pushed? A lot of times, folks, it's usually not your spouse or significant other. It's usually not friends or family. Sometimes it's not even coworkers. I can guarantee you it's not my parents, because they're probably watching tonight, and I could give the cruddiest speech tonight in the world, and they'd be like, "That's my boy, he does so good," right? "I'm so proud." That's not the feedback we're looking for. The pacers in your life are designed to push you, to give you the real stuff. In over 2 decades of developing talent, I can tell you this, that the pacers in your life really only need 2 very simple characteristics. The first is they have to know they're a pacer. They have to know that their job is to keep you on pace. Like Roger used those in his race, they have to know that where the goal is, what you're trying to accomplish, and their job is to give you the real information. And this is powerful for leadership development. What is the genesis of this is the fact that you can rapidly develop your bench strength in your organization by putting these pacers. The second characteristic that they need is they have to have been there. They have to have done it. I've got a good friend of mine, Jim. Jim is one of those guys that started his business in his 20s, sold it in his 40s for probably buku dollars. And he's one of those guys that likes to call me every now and tell me where he's at in the world. You know, that friend you love to hate. And I asked Jim one time, I said, what's the best piece of advice you ever got in running your business and being so successful? And what he told me was, the best advice I ever got is to never take advice from somebody who hadn't been there. And I thought, that's kind of simple, isn't it? But how often do we maybe ask the wrong person for advice? Maybe ask somebody at home about an issue at work, or somebody at work about an issue at home. Sometimes we ask the wrong people. So having those 2 characteristics give us the ability to have those people in our life that revolve through. Think about for a second, early on we talked about the fear. The thing that you fear the most, right? The thing that is maybe holding you back in your leadership. The thing that the last piece that you need to do what you want to do. The last piece that you need in order to grow your business. Think about having that there and putting people in your life that help you to rapidly develop that. And that is the hallmark of these organizations that are really not only growing their people, but they're growing their business. I've always had a saying that if you want to grow market share, grow your people. And so over 2 decades, I was able to have the fortune to work with in developing an immense amount of leadership, senior executive talent. And one of the things I'll share with you tonight is how do we use these pacers in our lives? How do we use this fear, right? What do we use this last piece that person needs, and how do we give them the information? What I developed is I'm going to share this with you tonight. You can see that it's a roundabout. Now, I know you have a few of those in Sioux Falls, and I've come to believe that 13% of the people in this town know how to use the damn things. Right? You're supposed to yield. Yeah. But a roundabout is for a free flow of traffic. So I developed this idea about a dozen years ago, and you can freely use this in your organizations, but it's called the Roundabout Accountability Process. That's as good as I could come up with. RAP. It's a good thing, Jeff, I didn't start off with a rap, right? Bebop, is it bebop or bebox? Yeah. Anyways, the Roundabout Accountability Process is really designed for you and your organizations to rapidly develop anybody, from your emerging leaders all the way to the C-suite executives or even yourself. The genesis of this is the fact that you are starting with the idea that I'm going to rapidly emerge a leader in this process to develop the talent, and the results are absolutely fantastic. When you look at it, at the center of it is really 2 pieces there. Inside of that, you put the leader. Again, that could be the emerging leader, the CEO. In some cases, it can be yourself. And inside of there, what you do is you put the thing that you're trying to develop. Think back earlier to the fear. Maybe it's the fear, the thing that you want to do. Maybe it's public speaking. Maybe it's negotiations. Maybe it's better conversations, better customer service. I don't care what it is. The thing that's really holding you back in your leadership, and you put that inside of there. Now, here's the power in this model. Is you'll notice that there's 4 roads that go outside of that. The top road is an individual that is in your organization that is going to manage this process. Probably a longer conversation than we have tonight, but nevertheless, it's somebody that's going to manage this process to make sure they have the things that they need. You'll notice outside of that there's 3 roads that are represented in this roundabout. That is for the information that leader needs, the resources they need, and lastly, the 3rd road is that pacer. That's where we put the pacer. So you can see that you're emerging the leaders within your organization, and as I said, the results are fantastic because you're doing this on the job in a learning organization that is pushing and pushing. And those individuals have the ability to learn and make those mistakes on the job, but have people, the pacers, around them for great growth. And it's fun. I mean, you can have as much fun as you want. I mean, like I said, I developed this a dozen years ago. It's free for anybody to use the concept. But when I became a public speaker, a professional speaker, I mean, I hadn't done anything other than maybe that college speech. And so I locked myself in a room in Tempe, Arizona with 4 Hall of Fame speakers, National Speakers Hall of Fame members. And I said, I'm going to give you a couple speeches. I want you to tear me apart. I want you to make me cry, make me quit. Well, they tried. So you have the ability to do this on yourself, but what you need is the information, the resources, and those pacers. And you'll see that it's a free flow of information because the pacers always change. We should always be asking ourselves, who do I need next? What's the last piece that I need to become better? And put those people in there. I've even had fun in the corporate environment. One time I had a young executive. She was wickedly smart. She had all the skills, but she just didn't have the charisma, if you will. She didn't have the presence in some of those meetings. And I would put her in a position so that she could report out on my numbers, so that she had the opportunity to lead. But it was that last piece that she needed. And I hired her acting lessons. You can have as much fun with this model as you want. I went to a local theater company and I said, hey, you use volunteers in your theater. Can you teach somebody charisma? I mean, can you teach them? She's like, yeah, hired her. And the results are amazing. That woman is still doing amazing things today. It was the last piece. When we want to walk farther than we've ever walked, we have to find ways to push ourselves every day. I just spoke with your local TV station yesterday morning, and I talked to them about laying tracks in front of a moving train. It's really kind of the same concept in terms of walking farther than we've ever walked because it denotes action. We have to get off the couch. We got to walk. And so great leaders in these organizations are always moving forward, and they're always developing themselves. And I'll say it again, if you want to grow market share and you want to grow your business, you have to grow your people, and they have to feel safe. Tonight, we talked about being fearful. What I challenge you tomorrow morning when you get up and you're having your cup of coffee, I challenge you to take out a white sheet of paper, and on top of that, write the thing you fear, or write the thing that you think is holding you back in your leadership development. Write that down. And think about my speech, the Wesleyan speech, and think about what it would be like if I did that. Regardless of failure or success, on the other side of that is a better version of me, and jump into it and write down in a couple sentences what that would be. And then underneath of that, I want you to think about the learning that we talked about in the second observation. What is the thing that is the biggest picture of me? Sit there for a moment in silence. Just try this. Sit there in a moment of silence tomorrow morning, if you can get some quiet time, and think about the biggest picture of your existence, the biggest picture of your leadership, the biggest picture of how you want the chamber to look, the biggest picture of how you want Sioux Falls to look. I don't care. The biggest picture of what you want your company to look like. And feel how bright today is. And then we just talked about putting the pacers and putting those people in our lives. And after we've chosen that, and we understand the thing that's holding us back, and we're getting the information, now put the people in your life that are going to kind of, forgive me, but kick you in the butt and push you. And everything can happen. I'm going to close with a story that I could only tell in Sioux Falls. Eight years ago, I was in the Yankton market, responsible for growing that one. And at the time, my boys, Zach and Xander, were just little boys. They were 9 and 7 years old. And so we went out on this place up on Lake Yankton where there's a bunch of bush you can see and just a whole bunch of forest. It's a beautiful place, one of the most beautiful places, I think, in the world. And so backpacks in tow, we park the truck and we go hiking. And we go about 1.5 miles inside of this forestry area, and we're having fun. And what we do is we come up on this area inside the forest where the trees have kind of fallen in on each other, the dead trees. And so we decide that we're going to make an X cave, like excellent adventure, excellent day with Dad, whatever the case is. And we spend the day, folks, doing stuff that would make their mother cringe, like hatchets and knives, right? We're cutting dead branches and we're building this X cave. That day, I was teaching my sons to walk farther than they've ever walked, kind of literally and figuratively. Throughout the day, I started dropping hints to them. And I started telling them, how would we find our way out of here? Which way does the sun go? How do we get our bearings? How do we do this stuff? Again, pushing them mentally farther than we've ever walked. That wasn't the end result. I thought I had a picture of that. Anyways, we really built this thing out. Now it's 4:30 at night, and it's about this time of year, so it's cold, it's getting dark. And I leaned down to my boys with their backpacks on, just little guys. And I said to them, boys, we're going to assume that we're in a crisis. We're going to assume that Dad is not able to help you get out of here today. And so you two need to work together to find yourself out of here. Get your way back to the truck. And of course they look at me, and I said, now, In about 20 seconds, I'm going to leave you through here to figure it out. And boy, folks, I can still see little Xander's face, red, rosy cheeks, right? The cold day, eyelids are already filling up with water, and he's looking at me like, Dad, have you lost your mind? Zach, the oldest son, traditional oldest son, he's looking at me like with 100 questions. And I said, boys, I said, the only way you make yourself out of a crisis is you have to work together. And now you're out of time. And I got up and I bolted. I took off as fast as I could, and I left my two boys in the middle of that forest. Some of you in this room know what I was trying to do. For the rest of you, don't think I'm bad dad of the year. What I actually did was I went about 25 yards and I dove into a bush and I hid. And I waited. I waited to see what they would do. I waited to see how this crisis would unfold. Sure enough, it started off as I thought, listening to them banter about this is fake, it's not real, this isn't happening, Dad will surely come back. And then I didn't. And then I sat there a little longer, and all of a sudden the arguments ensued. All of a sudden Zach wanted to go right, and Xander wanted to go left, right? And the thing that happened was the thing that I worried about the most. They split up. They were mad at each other. They decided to go the opposite direction. Now I got to decide, am I either going to choose a son, right? Or do I jump up and, all right, the gig is up. This is what we learned today. But folks, I waited. And the coolest thing happened. They got about 15 yards away, and they turned and they walked together. And they started working together. And pretty soon, those two little boys, over the next 45 minutes, found their way out of that forest and all the way to the truck, while Dad was crawling on his belly so they couldn't see me. This is the victory stump. They stood there, and you could see it in their faces, can't you? I tell you that story of my kids because in Sioux Falls, this is the only place I could probably tell that because you all get this. But the other reason that I tell you the story of these two little guys is because even 8 years later, when they're more grown men, I can still see it in their face. I can still see it in their eyes. I can still see the day that I pushed them to walk farther than they've ever been pushed. I can see it. And I can see it in yours. I can see it in all of your faces. I can see the fact that here in Sioux Falls, an extraordinary Sioux Falls, you have walked farther than you've ever walked. I sat in this audience 15 years ago when somebody said, we're going to build a city. And boy, did you guys build a damn city. It's beautiful what you've accomplished. It is amazing to see the difference. It is extraordinary. What is happening in Sioux Falls does not happen everywhere. I formed the company Boiling Frog Development to help leaders recognize that their environment has changed. And boy, has yours ever. I got to watch you when I was in the Southwest in Arizona. I got to watch you over the last 7-8 years from afar. I got to watch how you dealt with tornadoes and floods and recessions and pandemics and whatever else. And the way in which you all have handled that as a business community and as leaders is absolutely fantastic. I can see it in your face. When I meet with you now, I can see it in your eyes. In front of us, folks, now, as some of the previous speakers spoke, we have kind of a whiteboard in front of us. And we can paint whatever we want Sioux Falls to look like. We can paint whatever we want it to look like. For some of you in the audience, if you're thinking about your leadership, you can paint whatever picture you want that to be. You can paint, if you want to be the CEO of your own company, if you want to be dominant in leadership, you can paint that picture. For those of you that are running businesses, if you want to be global or regional or international, I don't care. Can you see it? Can you paint that picture? Can you see it? And for the development organizations in the city, the people that are represented here, can you see it? Can you see Highway 100 just lined with cars and businesses? just growing, people begging to come inside of our industrial parks. Can you see it? And if you can't, all you have to do is paint the picture. The only 3 brushes that you need to paint this picture in Sioux Falls is being fearless, being learned, and having people around us that are always going to push us. I got to watch how you all came together in this last pandemic, pooling resources to come together, to be able to make sure that all businesses that possibly could would survive and homeowners could survive. Folks, you were all wearing different colored jerseys and you got together and collaborated and did things that were amazing. This is extraordinary. This doesn't happen everywhere. This is one Sioux Falls. And I'm so proud to have brought my business back here. "15 years ago, I sat in this stage, I sat in this audience, and I wasn't even a professional speaker then, and I said to myself, someday I'm going to speak at that event. Someday I'm going to have something cool enough to tell a group of people like you, and I'm going to make that happen." And the 3 brushes that I used, folks, were those brushes. That's the picture I painted. And I can tell you, in 114 years of this event, I don't think there's a speaker that's graced this stage that is more thankful to be here than I am. Thank you so much, Sioux Falls. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. Larry, thank you for your message and your challenge to all of us. We're so glad that you chose Sioux Falls as the place to grow your business. Friends and fellow chamber members, thank you all for joining us, whether in person or remotely, for tonight's celebration of our extraordinary community. I want to give one final recognition to our champion sponsors, Avera Health and Sanford Health. And to our 11 advocate sponsors, thank you for your support of the Chamber. Our creative partner, the team at Hank & Schultz, made all the magic happen tonight. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the special thanks to those working behind the scenes to make this event a success. Amy Ellsworth, Dan Mahar, who shared their talents on stage, and the staff of the Sioux Falls Convention Center and Spectre Food Services and Hospitality, who prepared and served our meal. One more thing. I encourage all of you to mark your calendar now for October 19th, 2021, for our 115th annual chamber meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.